Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Video Reimagine Summit. My name is Naba. I'm an editor at Prezi, and I'm going to be hosting today's session. Thank you all so much for being here. We're kicking it off today with our keynote session, Video in Soul Motion, which will be presented by Skill Scout CEO and founder Elena Valentine. Elena is going to be diving deeper into video today. She's going to be sharing more than just the value of video and video trends. She's going to be discussing the act of video making itself and the responsibility we have behind the camera to our teams. Also, Elena and I are both using Prezi Video for our session today. If you're interested in trying it out yourself, please scan the QR code over here, where you'll also receive a free gift. We would love to hear from you throughout the session, so please drop any comments or questions you have into the chat and Q&A section. And so on that note, let me please introduce our speaker for today, Elena Valentine. Elena Valentine is a storyteller and a teacher. She believes that the most powerful medium for inspiring imagination is film. And as I mentioned, she's also the CEO and co-founder of Skill Scout Films, where she supports how companies foster a storytelling culture in their organization by creating powerful films to engage candidates and employees. She's also the co-founder and board president of Mezcla Media Collective, where she works to uplift a hub of over 700 women of color filmmakers in the Chicago area. She is also one of Prezi's virtual presentation innovators and has been a huge fan and is also one of my favorite people to work with. So on that note, please take it away, Elena.
We are a city that works. Our impact with a 1-2 punch. We lock arms with algorithms and convert code from zeros and ones to terabytes of unlocked potential. We stand firmly on the broad shoulders of bare-knuckled visionaries and get-it-doners, where hype doesn't last and talk is cheap. Show me how you do, how you why, and how you be. We let our emotions move us to tears and our passions drive us to greatness. For we know that greatness is just over the edge of defeat, and we grow through what we go through because defeat is just a part of the game we've signed up for here. We flow from the great migrations from Kiev to Delta South. With global roots and local heart, we hold our city like 1,000 towns, and our stories even closer. We don't deposit excuses. We've been shaped by tough problems and messy times. Solving problems that matter are messy. Transformation is never clean. Some may underestimate, underappreciate. Some may call us unpoised and unpolished, but may they less forget that rubies were built under pressure. And we are gems of the highest kind. So we'll take your Hail Mary passes because any given Sunday was made for a heart like ours. For the heart of an underdog is the heart of hope. We may bend, but we never break. So consider this our humble brag, long overdue, for we never show up to make little plans. For our difference is that we never split the difference. We invent it. Your invitation awaits. Well, now that I have everyone's attention, good morning. Thank you for holding space for me today over these next 40 minutes. That is a poem, a manifesto, a prayer that I wrote called Chicago, an invitation. That's where I'm from. That's where I was born. That's where I bleed. And it certainly will have more resonance as we go through this presentation, but it was inspired by an organization I'm working with here in Chicago to build the Chicago tech brand. And so we'll share a bit more about that as we go through. But clearly buckle up, buttercups. This is probably not going to be the standard presentation, so I'm just going to get this all out of the way right now, just in case people want to take a virtual summit exit for the next 40 minutes. I want you all to be able to do so. So what is this keynote not going to be about? Well, definitely not going to be about any technical video specifics. There's not going to be any data points on video or otherwise. That's something that we can look up. I've done those presentations before. This also is not going to be some 8 tips to do X. If you want, I can share that in Prezi as well. I've done that. And another thing to let you know as well, look, I let my emotions move me to tears. And so if emotions are also probably not something that you are ready for the next 40 minutes, also, I welcome you to opt yourself out. And so for those that are still here, this is a story about a deeper well, right? And the questions I've asked myself in this presentation, inevitably I'm asking this of you too, as storytellers. May this be a time that we have together to enable you to be in more reflection with yourself. And all I am is but a mirror for this experience for you to do so. To reflect on your reasons for being, to reflect on your reasons for being a storyteller, which is of the most sacred roles that we can have in our communities, in our organizations. You know, storytelling for me, this is a gift and a responsibility. And this is why I've entitled this keynote, Video in Soul Motion. But certainly I have a confession to make. I'll be honest, I probably still I'm questioning even this morning, what is video in soul motion? And who knows, it'll probably change every day for me. But that's the question we're asking today. What is video in soul motion? So more importantly, look, I'm not an expert here. May I just be a host of this experience for all of us are coming from organizations being our head marketers, our head griots of our organizations. And so may this be deep reflection for ourselves to think about this of what is video? What is video in soul motion? And so that's something I've been pondering as I just kind of threw this over to Rep Cap and Mary Ellen. That's a photo of me as a child with my dad and my little sister. In fact, it's right here by my desk. And so really, you know, the first question I asked myself of, you know, what is video in soul motion? I looked at that photo and I asked little Elena, when was the moment you first felt video in motion, video in soul motion? What was that feeling? Where did that come from? What was my first interaction, my first moment where I knew that I was in deep soul motion from something that I saw on film or on TV? I ask you all to think about that too, right? When was the first time you may have felt video in soul motion? Well, this might age me a bit. Some of you may be shocked in awe of how young I am, or some of you may be shocked in awe of how old I am, but I am a Nickelodeon kid. I am a Nick kid. I was just at that right age of the heyday to be a Nickelodeon kid. In fact, I remember at probably 11 years old watching Nickelodeon and saying to myself, there will never be a day that I am not a Nickelodeon fan. Like, never be a day. I mean, to this day, I don't think that there is a network who had me so captivated from morning till night. Like, it kind of didn't matter what was on. Like, I just leaned into the programming. And I leaned into the characters, right? I leaned into the characters. I fell in love with these stories. And I fell in love with characters, even the tough ones, right? Even the tough ones. That was a big thing for me, right? I knew that there were enough real nice guys, nice Dougs, nice girls, good Patty Mayonnaise, right? But I had questions about, you know, the Angelicas of the world. I had questions about the Roger Klotzes of the world. You know, and Susie was just so in her power. She could stand up to Angelica and still be herself and still be awesome. But it was so funny, right? Again, as a kid, right? Be it the bullies at home or the pressure I felt to be a big, tough, big sister. Deep down, I needed to understand that even the tough ones could break, and that was okay, and that was actually pretty special about Nickelodeon was the idea that actually they even ensured that the bullies had feelings too. And that bullies could even open themselves up, that bullies had stories, that the tough ones had stories. And that meant a lot to me to know that. And you know, the interesting thing about Nickelodeon was that they didn't stray away from hard topics, right? And in fact, nothing says more about how Nickelodeon resonated with kids and with hard topics more than the moment of when Magic Johnson met Hadia Broadbent. And I don't know how many of you remember watching this, right? When Magic Johnson shocked the world that he was HIV positive. He had a real emotional decision to make about how he was going to share this with the world. And he went to Nickelodeon. In a moment when our world was so fearful, we had so many questions. Magic Johnson dared greatly. And so did some of the young children that were on that show. Young children like Hadia Broadbent, who is also living with HIV. And Magic starts, you know, sharing. He asks, you know, the children, you know, how many of you have HIV? And Hadia raised her hand, and then she just wept. And she says, I want people to know that we're normal people. I want people to know that we're normal people. Oh, that was a sigh and release that, sure, all kids just felt. And in that moment, you could also see Magic Johnson release. And he says, you just want your friends to play with you and call you up and come by and still have sleepovers. It's okay to cry. And in that very moment, you know, he says it was both sad and inspirational. It made me want to do more to bring awareness to the disease and educate people so that no one would have to feel the way Hadia felt that day. Nickelodeon didn't stray away from hard topics. They just didn't do it in the way that other narratives were doing it. They didn't move in fear. They moved with love. They made it so that a kid could understand that Hadia and others were normal people, just like us, who just wanted to be played with, who just wanted to be kids. And in that moment, and really in all of Nickelodeon, right? Nick got me. I felt seen. I felt seen. In that moment when Magic met Hadia Broadbent, and in those moments when I'd watch Rugrats and Doug and Salute Your Shorts and Hey Dude, they got me. I felt seen. That was video in slow motion. I felt seen. And what's fascinating about all this is I was just really learning more about Nickelodeon. And mind you, if none of you all know the history, man, Nickelodeon's probably the most underrated network and story. This was a kids network at the time that all of the advertisers had just, disposed of, didn't think anything of. This was an organization led by some very strong women leaders who at that time, this was a still very much male-dominated space. Nickelodeon, in fact, the prequel, was founded by a woman. And Geraldine Laybourne, who brought Nickelodeon into what we know of it today up until around 1996, 97, kind of heralded this new wave for kids. She was a former teacher. And the thing that was so important to the leaders of Nickelodeon and to the animators and to everyone else who contributed to the Nickelodeon story was this idea that it's just tough to be a kid, right? It's tough to be a kid. It's tough to be a tough kid, right? It's tough to have a tough parent. Nickelodeon just got kids. And it was so clear, even in the way that the leaders behind this, they got that. They knew that this wasn't about promoting to parents or making parents feel good. It was all about ensuring that, look, this world is a yes and we can communicate it to young kids in a way that can help them understand their world. And in fact, their mission was to connect kids with each other and with their world through entertainment. That was their mission statement, to connect kids with each other and with their world through entertainment. So then think about that, right? Asking our inner child, when was the moment we felt seen? When was the moment we first felt seen from a piece of film or from a show? I certainly welcome that in the chat as well. We're all for it. This is reflection time, right? And so then the next question, I asked myself in the video in slow motion was, okay, well, who have been my teachers? Who's taught me this way of video in slow motion, or how I might help make people feel seen, right? I ask that of you right now as well. Who have been your teachers? Who have been your mentors to help you think about the kinds of stories you do today, how you approach those stories? And I share this as a question. This is actually, one of my favorite questions to ask when we interview folks at work is, talk to me about a memorable mentor. Because what's amazing about just this simple question is the level of emotion and story that comes out of someone. And so, who are mine? Who've been mine? Chris Conley, I affectionately call him my professional godfather. That's really who he was. He's the former founder of Gravity Tank, which I was a design researcher at, and inevitably he is and was an investor of Skill Scout. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Chris Conley daring greatly and believing in what we were doing and believing in us despite being so unproven. And beyond that, for Chris Conley, my blueprint for what it means to be a servant leader, my blueprint for understanding what it means to be a people of people for people has everything to do with Chris Conley. And when I think about the stories that I continue to tell and to create space for, who was recognizing with someone like Chris Conley was having a kindred curiosity about people, a kindred curiosity about people. And mind you, this guy is a design thinker of design thinkers, right? And so it didn't matter wherever we were at work, Chris Conley could show up in any bay, and he just always had this just natural curiosity about anything and everything and about people's behaviors and why they did what they did. And these were a couple of his, I'd say something and be like, well, say more. Show me. My favorite is what's behind that question, right? What's the so what? Like he would continue to get deeper and deeper and deeper with the questions until, without even realizing it, you'd realize like, oh wow, like we're onto something. There's the question that we didn't ask to really help understand who our consumers are, who we are designing for. And in my case, it was, who we are designing for employers or for job seekers. And then what was awesome about a Chris Conley wasn't just, okay, let's stay in the problem statement. Let's really ask deep and deeper well type questions. And then all of a sudden he'd say, then what if? What if we could imagine a world of X? And then what are ways of bringing this to life, of bringing new ideas to life? And then he would say, now let's prototype it. Let's do it. But it had everything to do with recognizing that humans were at the center of all of this, what we were designing for any of the projects we were working on, and certainly for the prequel of Skill Scout Films, is who are we designing for? Why are we designing for them? And may we continue to ask deeper and deeper questions of what that was. And it is something that has served me when I think about how I tell stories, why I tell stories. The planning of telling stories was just continue to ask questions until there felt like there were just no more questions to ask. And then there's been Paula Fraley, who is now the executive director of the Chicago Media Project, which I encourage all of you to check out, because it's really, helping to change the narrative, or really promote the narrative that stories have impact, that stories, that documentaries can drive real social change. That was a big thing that Paula Fraley has taught me. Many years ago, when I was a young audio engineering student for the second graduating class of Tribeca Flashpoint in Chicago, she really helped me to still see that and recognize that, even when I didn't even realize that this level of storytelling would be my path. And not only was it about thinking about, how our stories can have impact for good and for bad, but she also helped me to think about the way these stories get created. It's not just about who's in front of the camera. It's about who's behind them too. There's a quote that's really that I move with, that Mezgla Media Collective moves with, that I move with through Skill Scout, of if you want to change the story, you have to change the storyteller. My mentorship with Paula has really helped me to kind of understand, ways in which we play a role as storytellers in how this gets done and the impact that gets shared, right? And asking ourselves questions like, am I the right person to tell this story? How do we use story as a tool to drive social change? And inevitably, right, look, this is my professional mother, a maternal figure for me, who, sometimes has to remind me, who am I not to be great? And yet it was recognizing that, yes, stories have impact. Magic and Hadia Broadband have impact. Nickelodeon stories, they have impact. Another person I'd like to introduce you to, the all great storytellers, and again, I want you to be in reflection of your own mentors and teachers, is Josh Braun. I call him my sales Yoda, my sales angel, but more importantly, he's been one of the greatest teachers and mentors of my life. And I don't think what he realizes is that, he's a master of sales, a master of communication, but more importantly, what Josh Braun has taught me was to own my story and to be proud of it. And what does that mean? Some of us on this call We may be working for other organizations, right? You know, some of us are business owners, and selling can get real crunchy, but first let's just name it. We all sell every day, regardless if it's to our spouses or our kids. I mean, persuasion is part of what we do as humans. And what Josh Braun really taught me when it came to stories, and certainly even in this space, was that honestly, man, you have to own your story first before you can start to sell stories to other people, right? What Josh Braun helped me realize and feel comfortable with was owning my voice in this business, owning my voice and how I promoted what we did at Skill Scout. And it came down to humanity, right? You're not for everyone. This presentation, probably not for everyone. He also taught me something about, he gives a great Super Mario story of, that's the fireball, not the flowers, right? It's not about what this is. We shoot video, this is a film camera. No, it's what's the impact, right? What is the impact of the story? What do we actually really help you do? How do we make you more awesome at your job by working with us, by telling stories in this way? What he also helped to do inevitably too is recognizing that, again, whether we were in front of the camera or quite frankly behind, working with clients and everything, it was seeing each other. It was listening to one another and naming the feelings that we had. So this wasn't about selling something. It had everything to do with making sure that we were on the same page, even if that meant that we may not be the best partners for you. And that was really important for me to own my narrative as someone who I think for a long time felt pretty less than in what I was doing. Too scared, right, to say something, do something that might come off as unprofessional. When in reality, at some point, I had to just drop it and say, I'm just being human. And if that feels too unprofessional for you, I get it. I may not be right for you. And for those that are also ready to lean in a bit more vulnerably, because that's how we have to tell stories, then that's okay. And so that too became a key part when I think about ways in which we've told stories at Skill Scout, the ways in which I recognize how important it is to, share stories, and particularly share my own. And at Skill Scout, the start of our manifesto, it reads, "We exist to capture the humanity of work through stories that matter." I let that sit with me over these past couple days, remembering my inner child, watching Nickelodeon, and really asking myself, what is this? Why do we tell stories? Well, it's tough to be an adult. It's tough to be a worker. It's tough to be an adult worker. That's why we tell these stories, right? We started Skill Scout based on this premise that you cannot be what you cannot see. We were working with young people who, many of them had never left their neighborhoods. They lacked access and exposure to jobs. And you cannot be what you cannot see. And so we started to tell stories just inevitably just to get young people excited about the world of work. And then what we realize is, look, job descriptions don't show what a job is like. I mean, look, our entire workplaces are filled with people and opportunity, and man, are our narratives messed up here. Or we're certainly not allowing the more positive, most enriching narratives of work to come to the surface, to hold space for folks to both be themselves. That, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to be a worker. It's tough to be an adult. And so as I've gone through, even this whole exercise, even in going through thinking about what is video and soul motion to me, what does this mean? Inevitably, the soul's intent of Skill Scout films is to connect workers with each other and with their world through story. And more than anything, it's to just help workers feel seen. Just help workers feel seen. We spend half of our days at work. All of us here representing organizations or businesses, we spend over half of our lives at work, and yet we've somehow, unfortunately, made everyone feel that all of the expectation is that we have to show up a different way. That all of our healing and all of our traumas and fears, they have to stay at home. And what we realize, what we know actually is that this very much shows up at work. And we're feeling it, right? We're feeling it. And so as I've thought about that, Skill Scout Films has taken on a whole new meaning for me. This is not just about us doing video to help Nike recruit or American Airlines recruit or insert any other company. It's to help workers feel seen. And so then the question becomes, how does that show up in my work? Right? How does that show up in your work? How do you help people feel seen? How do you feel seen at work? Who sees you at work? Because what we're realizing is we have to feel seen in order to hold space for others to be seen and feel seen. And that goes way beyond the camera lens. And so that's the next question that I ask myself. All right. How do I foster this changing definition that I have, right, of video in soul motion? Well, I would be remiss not to share probably one of the most ultimate storytellers, bare-knuckled visionaries of Chicago, who completely rocked and changed my world of stories and work, and that's the great Studs Terkel. He wrote a book called Working, compiled of stories of janitors to engineers to prostitutes to CEOs. I mean, he humanized work for me, and it blew everything up. That actually, this whole journey for me was kind of understanding, what is this meaning of work? And Studs Terkel said it best, and this is something that I move through every day. Work is about a search for daily meaning as well as daily bread, for recognition as well for cash, for astonishment rather than torpor, in short, for a sort of life rather than a Monday through Friday sort of dying. Well, when I really thought about that, right? Work to me, work is sacred. All work, our work is sacred. And dare I tell you, the way I ensure, the way I can move through video and soul motion every day is I lean into work the way I lean into prayer. And I'm sure on our summit here, prayer can mean a lot to everybody, but I want everyone to think about this for a second, right? What does prayer feel like? How often do we insert that kind of feeling of prayer into our work? Because I'll tell you, as storytellers, if we are here to hold space for people to share their most authentic selves, then hot damn, we better be sure that we are holding a sacred space. And confession to make really for clients, for partners, quite frankly, for my colleagues. I mean, I have a prayer for everything. I pray before a big film day. I pray before every interview. I pray before I open my computer. May this piece of technology, may this piece of technology help me be in service of others, right? And that's important. And inevitably, some people can call it gratitude, and that's fine, because that's exactly what it is. Because what I've realized that this journey of work has been to understand what it means to feel seen in workspaces, which means I have to ensure I feel seen in my workspace, and to use that as fuel, not just for individual success, but for our collective ones. And so then, yeah, may I feel seen at work? Here's another really powerful question that we ask folks in interviews is, tell me about the moment you knew you found your best friend at work. And I have a best friend at work. She's my co-founder, Abby. And I'll tell you, I feel seen every day and in every moment because of her. I have a best friend at work. There is not a moment where I don't feel seen, and that certainly allows me to loosen up, to loosen back, so that I can hold space for others. May we see each other. This is around my team. You know, I remember someone asking me years ago now, even right before COVID actually, which is all the more cogent, asked if I was a business owner or a filmmaker first. And the truth is, while that can vary inevitably, as leaders, as business owners, the biggest gift, our biggest strength is how we can orchestrate the symphony of stories in front of the camera, and more importantly, the stories behind it. You know, every day, you know, when I think about if I was a Wizard of Oz character, I'm like the invisible paver of the Yellow Brick Road. I'm constantly asking myself, how might I ensure my team feels safe, truly, psychologically and physically safe? How may they feel celebrated and seen so that they can do their best work? Because if I can ensure that they feel seen, they feel safe, they feel celebrated, and the stories that we tell on film are only that much more powerful. And then may we see you, right? Our clients, the companies, the people that we are blessed to tell these stories for and with. You know, I stopped a long time ago getting freaked out about where these videos would go or what the goal was, which was to raise, $100 million in the next 3 to 5 years, or we're here to attract all of these recruits. And inevitably, what I realized actually, if I just focused on the sacred space of me and that person in front of me, if we could get to a place for us to see each other and hold spaciousness for them to release, whether that was a laugh or a cry, then we did our job. Because if they can feel seen on film, their story will clearly be so much more powerful to those on the outset. And so, right, like this is very hard for me to do, right? This literally right now is video in slow motion. I don't see your faces. It's hard to be up here, right? It's hard to not think about who might be critiquing, who might be saying this is bunk, who may not see me the way I try to see them. That's why this is so hard. Because when you have a camera lens on someone, it exposes them, and the camera only accentuates that. And so very quickly, right, my role in holding a sacred space for people is to help folks get over that and get over it pretty quickly so that they can get themselves in a heart space that enables them to relax and know that we got them, right? When they come into our interview space, may I hold a level of spaciousness that if they want to go there, if they want to dare greatly, if they want to laugh, if they want to cry, may I laugh and cry with them. Because their story is my story in that moment. Storytelling work is healing work. That's what we do. That is video in slow motion. It's not about the lens. It has everything to do with the ways that we hold space for each other. That is the role of a storyteller. That is the role of a really good griot. And that is the only way that we're going to continue to make this work, to drive the kind of change that we want to see. We live and stand by our narratives, right? Our world is strung by narratives, which means really that the last part of this is, hey, may I see myself? May you see yourselves? May I have the courage to own my narrative, and by doing so, help others to have the courage to own their narratives too. That to me is video in slow motion. When I kicked off my presentation, I shared with you that this was a poem that had been inspired by an organization that is looking to build the Chicago tech brand to attract technology leaders, businesses, other folks to Chicago. And they had, asked for Scale Scout support, asked, hey, here's kind of the vision, maybe you can help us write the script. And so I go home, I write it. Little did I know that I'd actually be pitching it to their entire team the next day, right? Chicago, an invitation, like didn't know how it was going to come off. And I stop, I complete the piece, and a man comes up to me, one of the leaders, and he says, where did you come up with that? Like, how did you write that? And then before I could even respond, he says, oh no, like, that's taken you all your life to write. That's your story, isn't it? That's your story of entrepreneurship. And I said, yeah. That we of Chicago, yeah, that is me. That is my story. That is me owning my narrative so that I may help others own theirs too. I show you how I do, how I why, and how I be. I let my emotions move me to tears and my passions drive me to greatness. For I know that greatness is just over the edge of defeat, and I grow through what I go through because defeat is just a part of the game I've signed up for here. I don't deposit excuses. I've been shaped by tough problems and messy times. Solving problems that matter are messy. Transformation is never clean. Some may underestimate, underappreciate. Some may call me unpoised and unpolished, but may they lest forget that rubies were built under pressure, and I am a gem of the highest kind. So I'll take your Hail Mary passes because any given Sunday was made for a heart like mine. For the heart of an underdog is the heart of hope. I may bend, but I never break. So consider this my humble brag, long overdue, for I never show up to make little plans. For my difference is that I never split the difference. I invent it. Your invitation to own your narrative, your invitation to be seen and help others feel seen, your invitation awaits. Thank you so much. Video in slow motion.
Thank you so much, Elena, for sharing such a powerful story. I know this entire time I was like, first when you asked the question of like, when was the last time you felt seen? I was like jotting that down, and then you just kept dropping more like nuggets of knowledge. And so I appreciate you being so vulnerable and authentic with us today. That was an amazing session. And I already know I want to go back and watch the recording, even though I was here watching it the entire time. I wish we had more time to dive into questions, but if anyone has questions, feel free to add them into the Q&A and we can hopefully send them over to Elena. Up next, we do have our panel discussion, which will be with 4 different thought leaders, Sarah Felsenstein, Stephanie Grossman, Doc Rock, and Javier Valdivia. So please join us for that. And I'm going to pass it over to Mary Ellen to kick it off. Thanks, everyone. And thank you so much, Elena. We love this session.